Hello, everybody. We are here at another Raising a Warrior Meets interview, and we are very, very lucky today. We have the amazing Jo Morton-Brown with us. Jo is so passionate about children and young people's mental health. She is an emotional health practitioner. She's done so many things, I've had to write a list. She works as a school-based counsellor. She's a family support worker. She provides training to adults on mental health for children and young people. And she's also a qualified youth mental health first aid instructor, which I'm definitely going to be asking Jo about on another call, because I'm very intrigued about that. So this is obviously one of our Raising a Warrior Meets interviews, but what we're doing with this interview is making it specific to one of our features, and that feature is bullying. And Jo has very, very kindly offered to come on and answer some specific questions about bullying. So if your children are going through bullying, be it they're the victim or they are actually the child doing the bullying, Jo's going to answer some questions about that for you, just to give you some advice and some extra tips and tricks for how you might approach this really difficult situation in your child's life. So we've got 3 questions to ask. Naomi over there is going to be asking the first one. So over to you, Naomi.
Okay, so Jo, do you think bullying has increased, and if so, why?
I do think that bullying has had a massive increase. I think it's just over the years, really, and I'm not too sure if we're more aware of it, which is a bit like mental health anyway. So is it something that we are just more aware of? But also I think the fact that actually over the years there is, as we know, can't deny it, social media for some people. And obviously teenagers are experiencing social media, but so are those tweens as well now. And I think sometimes that's what's making it harder, is that there's almost this, with social media, this false reality, this world where everything looks happy, everything looks as if it's their best life. And let's be honest, none of us would ever post a picture if we, if it was having a really bad day and crying, and having tears and everything. That's not the type of pictures that we would post on social media. Yeah. And I think the hardest thing for us is to actually realise that life isn't like that. Life isn't about filters and things like that. Yeah. And we know that, and we understand that as adults. But for children and young people, they almost compare themselves. I've heard it, and I love the sense of compare and despair. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's just such a brilliant term, because what's happening is that they are comparing the worst of themselves, compared to the best of somebody else that they're looking at online. And I just think that we have this sense of compare and despair, so much so that actually it's as if we feel that we should be living up to that life. Mm-hmm. And that I feel that because of that, we almost can sometimes make ourselves feel victim, because we don't have that amazing life, we don't have those friends. And I'm not saying that makes children and young people almost bring it on themselves, but I just feel as if our emotional well-being and our self-esteem is affected by social media. That can almost make it harder to make friends because of their self-worth being so low. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
That so their worth of having good, true, honest friends may feel as if that's something that they don't deserve. And I think nowadays there's so many friendships out there that are so toxic. And as parents and as adults, we can see it. We can see those friendships. We know who is good for those that hang around with our children. And I've only got a 6-year-old, so I've got a lot to learn. But I can't begin to imagine how hard it must be if your child is hanging around with the wrong sort of people.
Yes. Yeah.
And in a toxic friendship where actually they think it's okay to be treated or let down, or, you know, just not treated kindly.
Yeah.
So I do think that it has almost increased over the years, but I just feel as if there's this children not realizing that actually they are worthy of good friendships that make them feel good, and that they deserve it. And that is why I think they allow toxic friendships to be created, or to almost embrace them sometimes, because it's okay for them to be treated like that. And therefore I feel as if they almost allow themselves to become a target more so. And I feel that if we had those children that were confident, and I call them beautifully confident, because it doesn't matter about who they are or what they have to give, that they just have that confidence, you know. Oh yeah, you know, oh, I can't do that. Oh well, I'll try. And it's those beautifully confident children that then have the ability to realize what is right and what is wrong with regards to friendships. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, it's beautiful, because I was just thinking, then you pinged me back to a memory of my first kind of experience with a tween, and that first realization when they said, well, I'm not lovable because this photo only got 70 likes. And I was like, oh, this is reality for them. This is how they're perceiving themselves. And I thought, oh, okay, this is really interesting feedback from life. And I thought, but it's so warped. So the explanation you've just given is just absolutely spot on with how the feedback they're getting is so external rather than that internal. I've tried my best. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Go for it, Samantha. I think you've got question 2.
I do. Question 2. Do you think bullying can have life-lasting effects on children and young people?
Oh, I think we all know the answer to this one, don't we?
I think so.
I think it's so hard because it depends on the intensity of bullying. And I think with regards to bullying, it used to be just one category of bullying. So certainly when I was at school, it was just bullying. But now you've got that cyberbullying. And that's the saddest thing about those, because let's face it, some of our tweens are faced, you know, and have the ability to be on the internet and to have social media. And that's a parental choice, and I respect that. But at the same time, it's this realizing that, are we protecting our children in the right way? Because I do think that bullying just has this lifelong ability, whether it's bullying or cyberbullying, of affecting our children in a way that it's their self-worth, their self-esteem, and even about their ability to almost believe in themselves that's affected, and that I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough. And I believe that it's those qualities that are I don't know what word to say, but almost, you know, scorched for the rest of their lives, because that is something that they'd need to work on building up that self-worth, self-belief, self-esteem for them to feel good. But it's trying to get children to realize the difference between what I would call name calling and bullying.
Right.
So I work as a counsellor, I work at a secondary school. And obviously with our tweens that we work with, they really are in year 7, they really are that in-between phase, aren't they? They really are. And I feel really sorry for them, because there's just that, like, I've got my nephew and we've just been on holiday, and he's in between adult conversation being with us, but also playing with his sister and my little boy. So he's like in between, and that's really hard for them to kind of grasp that. But then obviously when they start secondary school, for some students they feel as if they're being bullied, when actually, and I'm not saying that this is right, but there is this name calling that happens, this banter. And the hardest thing with banter literally is that the person that is saying these words, or having bants as they call it, because why say a word properly when you can just call it bants, clearly.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But actually what's happening, I think, is that, you know, these children sometimes feel as if they're being targeted, and if it is bullying, when actually it is name calling. And I'm not saying that that's right, but what I am saying is that we need to allow our children to have this certain amount of resilience. So then it can be, oh, they've just been really unkind and really nasty and calling me names, and to actually act upon that before it develops into bullying. Because the way that I try and get my kids to identify the difference between bullying and name calling in particular is that, does that young person who is being so offensive, do they know that they are purposely causing you upset? Because if they know that they are purposely causing you upset, then to me that is bullying.
Right.
And I'll give you a really good example, is that when I was at school, I'm not even 5 foot, so petite is, we're super petite. But what happens is that when I was at school, obviously I was the smallest in my year group, even in year 11. And there was this boy who for years and years had called me, and it sounds silly, and this is the thing with name calling, is he called me 2 centimeters tall. It's not hurtful, it's not harmful, but guess what? It upset me. And in the last year, I actually had the guts to say to him, I don't like you calling me that. And this boy was nearly in tears because he never realised that I didn't like it. He never realised. So for some people, they would have said that maybe they were bullied throughout primary school, with secondary school, with all these unkind names. But actually, that was just name calling. He was mortified, and bless him, he really did. I think genuinely did cry because he was so upset that he'd caused me that feeling of, dreading being called that name. So I really think it's important for our young people to have that resilience, to know the difference between name calling and bullying, and then obviously the difference with being able to, what is right and what is wrong.
And there's just no break, is there, anymore with social media? If we were bullied or name called at school, you'd get home and you'd just be in your home environment. Whereas, like you said, now if we're being bullied or name called at school, we go home and then we've got social media, and then it extends and there's just no break. And our children now questioning, am I being bullied because I'm not like that person on social media? Am I being bullied because my life doesn't look like that, that rosy picture that you talked about, Jo? So it's just relentless now, isn't it? Whereas when I used to go home from school, I would just be at home. I wouldn't be on the phone, on my computer, or anything like that. That would be it, and I'd go home and play. But it's just non-stop at the moment for children. Non-stop.
And that must be really hard for our parents out there, because I know that when I was at primary school, even secondary school, I didn't get my mobile phone until I was 14. And even then I wasn't one of the first, but I certainly wasn't one of the last. And I know that when I did have my conversations with my friends when I was at primary school, beginning of secondary school, we had the house phone, and we all know that house phone, your parents could overhear it, couldn't they? Because you were really lucky if you had a cordless phone. I don't know if you ever was lucky enough to have a cordless. We didn't. We were in the kitchen like this. But there was this sense of parents being able to patrol our conversations and have that sense of monitoring our friendships, when now it's hard for parents to keep up, and certainly for our teenagers, when there is so many different forms of social media. There's you've not just got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, you've got Snapchat and TikTok, and I really can't keep up with it, if I'm honest with you.
No, I've just been being educated about TikTok
I agree,
and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I've only just got YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
And that must be so hard for our parents to try and keep up with the method. And then nowadays, children are so secretive with the wording that they use, and the slang and the letters.
And also they can reply so quickly to their friends. There's no thinking things through. It's just literally a reaction, and you think, oh, even as adults we know that reacting isn't always the best way in a situation.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So I think it's just hard, and I just think that it's just children needing to become aware of the ingredients of a good friendship. So one of the activities that I love to do with my school kids, and it's great with primary school kids, is to get the child to draw a picture of a key or print a picture of a key, and it's like, what's the key to a good friendship? And I think that it's quite good for our children to actually sit down with their parents on their own and actually think about, what is it that makes a good friendship? What is the key to a good friendship? And just trying to get that child to realize that it's about trust, that it's about having that sense of humor, about being open with one another. And I just think that if children can just be more resilient and more reflective upon what is a good friendship and a poor friendship, then I think that will help them distinguish the difference and being able to identify that bullying.
Really great activity, definitely. I'm sure a lot of parents watching this will use that now. Okay.
Right, question number 3. What can children and young people do if experiencing a form of name calling or bullying or cyberbullying?
That's a really good question, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a really good one. So my main role is obviously working as a counsellor, is that the most important thing that children forget to realise how important it is actually being able to talk about it. And sometimes just having that family member, it doesn't have to necessarily be the parents. I think it's sometimes really good if the parents have another trusted member of the family that they can always put into place for an intervention to talk with their child, knowing that they're going to get the truth. I think that's a really good one of having that intervention. But I just think that it's really important that they have that person that they can go to and talk about how they're feeling. And I do always try and encourage families to always eat around the table of an evening, because it's always giving that child the opportunity to talk, even if they don't want to. It's having that window of opportunity to talk if they were worried. And that's why I love dinner time, tea time. We call it dinner time down here, but some people up north call it tea time.
Yeah, it gets a bit confusing because that then swaps it with lunch and you're like, oh.
Evening meal. But having that opportunity, that subconsciously that child that's having a bad time at school that day can actually be thinking, I can't wait to be able to talk about this. And instead of them thinking, oh my gosh, when am I going to be able to bring this up? Just knowing subconsciously, well, I've always got my parents' attention or mum's or dad's attention when it's dinner time. So just having that opportunity to speak about how they're feeling, because then they can also like almost disable, if it was to ever become bullying, at least they might be able to put in that self-awareness of realizing, okay, this is name calling, let's do something about the name calling. Because I always think that early intervention is key. But the hardest thing is it's down to that young person to understand what is and isn't acceptable. So my first thing is to almost talk about how they're feeling. My second one, I think, is almost that the child needs to have a bit of a reality check and actually think that, is that person, like I said earlier, purposely trying to make them feel sad? But also having a reality check, thinking that actually, is this what a friendship is about? Because it's only then that they have the opportunity or the realization that actually this isn't healthy, or this person isn't making me feel good. I don't deserve this. I deserve a better friendship. That again, they can actually do something about it. And I think that's hard. That's really hard. And I think when it comes to cyberbullying, I do genuinely think sometimes it is best just to come off of that form of social media. I really, really do, because it's the fear of the unknown, in a sense that if I come off of it, what am I missing? But that's the beauty of it. If I come off of that form of social media, what will I be missing?
Yeah.
You know, what will I be escaping from? So I changed that word from missing to escaping from.
Yeah.
And almost allowing that child to feel empowered. And I think that's what we need to create as parents, is that sense of empowerment, that actually this is a choice that you're making to allow yourself to escape from that is not nice. It is not natural. It is not, you know, this isn't meant to be happening to you.
Yeah.
This isn't normality. And for them to have this sense of empowerment, albeit encouraged by the parent, but actually to have the choice of actually realizing that if I do stay on this form of social media, then guess what? They're going to still be there. And like you said, Samantha, like there's this opportunity for 24/7. And like you said, when we were at school, we could leave. But it's not quite as simple as that anymore, is it? It's just in their home now, and their home's meant to be their safe place. We all know that.
Yeah.
It's meant to be their safe place.
Oh, amazing. I really feel that you've given some incredible answers there, and just offered such a lot of wisdom and advice for anybody listening to this, anybody who's going through it. Not an easy situation to tackle in life. Very, very difficult. So a huge thank you, Jo, for coming on.
You are more than welcome.
Spending your time with us today. And we will definitely be putting this out there for all our warriors to watch and to take the wisdom from it. So a huge thank you from us.
You are very welcome.
And I have no doubt that we will be working together at some point in the future. So that's a goodbye from me as well.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.